aboard when you hear us call.
The world would be a very dull place without patterns. Patterns are just about everywhere. Anything can be used to make simple patterns. You can use basic shapes to make bold patterns, and then maybe use different colors to make the patterns really stand out. Nature is full of beautiful patterns. Look at the different patterns here. What kind of patterns are they? We copy nature's beautiful patterns to make our own, inside and outside. What do these patterns remind you of?
To make a pattern, you need marks, colours, shapes, but the essential thing is to repeat the same picture or pattern again.
Colours, marks or shapes can be used as motifs to make patterns. A motif can be arranged in any direction to create a design.
Just do purple across there, then orange and purple, then orange, all be done. My pattern begins with W's and M's and they flip over and they always repeat, and I'm going to cover my whole page with them and colour them in. Just round it down, watch it, I'm so best.
But I've used octagons and the squares automatically came out. But you can also use things like bottle tops, coins. All patterns must be repeated, otherwise they won't be a pattern.
Artist Pompa Barman is making an Alpana floor painting. Alpana is a traditional Bengali technique from India that uses patterns to decorate the house and for special occasions like weddings. Pompa is using white emulsion paint to make the patterns. She gets her ideas from things like flowers and shells. What do you think of this? Isn't it beautiful?
We made some simple clay finger pots in school, and today we brought them to Potter Merrywell's workshop to be glazed and fired. Mary uses a special glaze technique to make a crackle pattern called raku. This is a random pattern.
With the raku firing, you've got the opportunity to use your glaze in this way, and you can get this lovely crackle pattern, which is what happens when you raku fire. So when it's pulled out of the kiln, it's pot's very hot and it hits the cold air, And the glaze shrinks and cracks, and you can hardly see the cracks in it, but by putting it in the sawdust, it blackens all the cracks. And every single time you get a pot out, the crazing will be different. Can you see these bent lines here? They've been made simply with masking tape. We've got some masking tape there. This one has been cut and bent and stuck on the pot. Then it's been glazed, so the glazed parts has crackled. And when it's fired, the smoke goes into the lines and shows them up to making another pattern.
Before we fired the pots, we had to decorate and glaze them.
Hold the colour and you'll get the actual copper colour, the greeny one. Yeah? Now, what you can do to make two rough edges, two wiggly edges, is actually, on your pot, stick that on and rub it with your thumbnail.
The glaze is dry, so off to the kiln for firing.
The next one.
Artist Steve Mattison set up the kiln.
Okay, so it's just on very gentle for the first 2 or 3 minutes. Then we'll start to slowly build the kiln up, bit by bit, until after about 15 minutes, the glaze will be melted. Look inside there. It's not very hot in there at the moment. It's only about 400 centigrade. Nothing's starting to glow. It's still on very, very low. But throughout the firing, as it gets hotter and hotter, you'll see the pots get redder and redder as the glazes melt. Okay. Who wants the new ones?
We had to wear gloves for safety
Try and find a pair.
because the pots are very hot.
Although you might all be watching, say, Danny carrying a hot pot with tongs, be careful because there might be somebody else behind you carrying a hot pot. So be aware of where everybody else is, okay? If you use your common sense, it's no problem. Into the sawdust will burn, the lid on, puts the flames out, okay?
Well done.
I'm sorry. Okay. This is going too cold. Go on. Okay. In you go. Lovely. Now what's happening in here, these pots are going colder, aren't they? They're cooling, the glazes are cracking, and the smoke's getting sucked into all the bits. If it's got copper on it, the copper is changing colour. For us to know how much crazing is on the pots, I hold it in the air and listen to it, and you can hear it going ping. It pings, ping, ping, as the glaze cracks. Right, and that's the crazing happening. Okay.
Before we could clean the pots, we had to cool them down in water.
Yep. So they're still very hot, so even though they've been in the water, you see how hot that is still. It's still sizzling. Give it a good scrub around to get all the resin off. Okay, and once you've done that, chuck it in the water, just put it all off, and that's what you get. Robert's got some really nice crazing inside here. What's the colour on this one? Look at that green.
This is cool. It's nice. I like that bit until the crack. I used this forky thing to put round the top, and I did it round the side as well. And then I glazed it to make a pattern around the side and some sellotape.
I used a mini little fork to make these patterns, and I used some tape to make these patterns.
I used tape to make this pattern, and I used a round stick to make this, and I think my work is brilliant.
Artists around the world have always used patterns in their work. For pictures on the wall, to cover their bodies, and their faces, and to decorate their homes. Patterns describe the way things look. Texture describes the way things look and how they feel when you touch them. Smooth, rough, soft, hard. Sometimes a pattern gives you the feel or idea of texture. Think about all these natural textures. Imagine what they feel like when you touch them. Look at the pattern on these feathers. Feathers have a soft texture to touch. Imagine the texture when you lie in a bed of feathers. Or on a bed of nails.
Today, our art class starts in the wood with textile artist Heather Lowe. We're looking for natural patterns and textures. Pick only what's safe and don't break off branches. There are plenty lying about.
Right, let's look at this oak leaf. You see it? You look closely, it's not just a brown leaf. It's got lots of tiny black spots on it. Everybody see that?
Yeah.
Look at these veins and the patterns in between. Yeah? So when you're drawing that, you wouldn't just get brown felt pen, would you? Okay, let's go and see what we can find next. It looks like a sort of seaweed almost, doesn't it?
Yeah. Look at this. It's been inside a tree.
Been inside?
Like a
Oh,
disc
right.
inside of a tree. That's the back. We think this would be really good because it's got all different patterns and colours and I think it'd be good for the collage.
So let's collect everything together, go to our pile, and then we'll make our way up to the quarry.
We're heading for the old slate quarry to make a textured collage on the ground. We're going to use some of the things we've collected from the wood.
So you want a head up here, and a wing here, and a wing here, and its tail where Laura is.
Like that there, yeah? Like that. For peacocks.
Both the wings will look similar. Right, Ruth, can you give some of the wings those over to Mark so he can have some? And you can use some more.
In case you're wondering, it's a bird.
So we're going to cut the kiwi up, and look at that. Isn't that beautiful?
Yep, very beautiful.
That's lovely, isn't it? And look at the colours in there. What can you see?
Black, green.
So what are we going to do? We're going to put the square over the top, the window. Absolutely lovely pattern.
The window acts like a viewfinder. Back in the classroom, Heather showed some of us how to look at the patterns in fruit. We're using the patterns for silk painting.
cuts a kiwi in half and puts a window over it so you can concentrate more on the part you're working at. And it's got lots of lines and dark purple pips, and I think it's really interesting because of the patterns in it.
OK, now you've all drawn your squares, and Anirin's actually gone on to the next stage. He's thinking about the silk painting, OK? So he's taken part of his pattern, and he's blown it up, and it's ready to go on the border of the silk painting. So should we get on with it? OK? Yeah?
There was a bubble on it. While some of us paint, the rest of the class are using textured wood to weave and wrap. We're using ideas we collected from the wood.
It's for the collage we're doing, and we're wrapping this around material so it can look like trees. Lots of different brown and things. Well, I'm going to use different colours to make the patterns to look more like the tomato. It doesn't really matter if it's a kiwi, it's just the pattern that really counts.
And Zigzag returns to BBC Two on Friday the 9th of June, looking at ways of...